I didn't shout. I didn't make a scene. I just stood there in the parking garage, looking at the security guard who wouldn't meet my eyes, holding the guest list on his tablet like it was evidence in a murder trial. My name, Robert Hayes, had a red line through it. Not crossed out with a pen, mind you, but digitally highlighted in red with a note next to it that read, "Per Michael Hayes, do not admit under any circumstances." My son, my only child, the kid I'd raised alone after his mother died when he was 7. The guard cleared his throat. "I'm really sorry, sir. I'm just following orders. Mr. Hayes was very specific that if you showed up, I was to." He trailed off, clearly uncomfortable. "To what?" I asked quietly. "To ask you to leave. He said you'd understand why." I did understand. I understood perfectly. I turned around and walked back to my truck, a 15-year-old Ford F-150 with rust spots on the fenders and a dent in the tailgate where I'd backed into a pole 3 years ago. The parking attendant had tried to send me to the service entrance when I'd arrived, assuming I was with the catering crew. I'd let him believe it, had even tipped him $5 when he'd grudgingly let me park in the guest area. As I drove away from the downtown Portland Convention Center where my son's company, MicroEdge Technologies, was celebrating its IPO, I caught a glimpse of the banner through the glass doors. From garage startup to NASDAQ, the MicroEdge success story. I'd been there in that garage. I'd been there for all of it. But that was the part Michael didn't want anyone to know. Let me back up 6 years. I'd spent 35 years as a venture capitalist in Silicon Valley under a different name, a corporate name, managing funds through layers of LLCs and investment firms. When I'd made enough to retire comfortably, I'd moved to Portland, bought a small auto repair shop, and told Michael I was done with the rat race and wanted a simpler life. I'd raised him to understand the value of hard work. After his mother died, I didn't spoil him with everything I could have given him. I taught him to change oil, to fix things himself, to save money, to respect people regardless of their job or bank account. I lived modestly, drove old trucks, wore Carhartt jackets, and worked on cars with grease under my fingernails. Michael went to Portland State, not Stanford, because he'd insisted on a school he could afford with scholarships and part-time work. I'd been proud of that. He'd studied computer engineering, graduated with honors, and started MicroEdge in his apartment with 2 college friends. The company was brilliant, solving a problem with cloud architecture that I'd immediately recognized as valuable. But 6 years ago, when Michael first told me about it, I didn't tell him I understood what he was building. I'd played the simple mechanic, nodding along while he explained things in simple terms, treating me like I couldn't possibly grasp the technology. "That sounds real complicated, son," I'd said, wiping my hands on a shop rag. "But I believe in you." When he'd needed funding 2 months later, after burning through his savings and maxing out credit cards, he'd asked me for $5,000. I'd told him I didn't have it, that the shop barely broke even most months. I'd watched him leave my garage, shoulders slumped, thinking his dream was dead. What he didn't know was that I'd made a phone call that same night to Marcus Chen, an old colleague who managed a venture capital firm I'd seeded 20 years earlier. By the end of the week, MicroEdge had received a $500,000 investment from Chen Ventures, with the understanding that I was the silent partner through layers of corporate structure. Over the next 6 years, I'd funneled $12 million into Michael's company through various channels. Every time MicroEdge needed capital for expansion, for key hires, for surviving the rough patches, the money appeared from strategic investors, whose names were buried in financial documents Michael never fully examined. I attended his pitch meetings sitting in the back of boardrooms, introduced as Robert Hayes, industry consultant. I wore reading glasses I didn't need, and spoke with a slight working-class accent I'd deliberately cultivated. Michael never recognized that I was steering those conversations, that I was protecting his company, that every major business decision that saved MicroEdge from failure had been influenced by the old mechanic asking simple questions that made the real executives reconsider their assumptions. The company thrived. Last year, when the IPO talk started, Michael began dating Jennifer Prescott, a corporate lawyer from a wealthy Seattle family. I'd met her twice, both times at the auto shop when Michael had stopped by. She'd stood near the door, unwilling to touch anything, checking her phone while Michael and I talked. The second time, she'd pulled Michael aside. I'd heard her whisper, "Can we please go? This place smells like oil and desperation." Michael had laughed. Not a fake laugh to appease her, but a real one, like he agreed. 3 months ago, Michael called me. Not to visit, but to inform me that he wouldn't be able to see me for a while, because things were really busy with the IPO process. 2 months ago, he'd sent a text. "Dad, Jennifer and I are getting serious. Her family is important in Seattle business circles. I need you to understand that some things about my background might be simplified in the press coverage. It's just business." 1 month ago, I'd seen the Forbes article. Tech wunderkind Michael Hayes, from community college to NASDAQ. The article mentioned his humble beginnings and how he'd pulled himself up by his bootstraps with minimal family support after his mother's death. There was one line about me. Hayes' father, a retired auto mechanic in Portland, instilled a strong work ethic. That was it. Retired auto mechanic. Not even a name. 2 weeks ago, the IPO celebration invitation went out to 500 guests. I hadn't received one. I'd only found out about it because Michael's assistant, a young woman named Priya who'd brought her car to my shop for an oil change, had mentioned it. "It's black tie," she'd said, excited. "At the convention center. Open bar, live band, the works. Michael's going to ring the closing bell from the party, via satellite. It's going to be incredible." I'd asked if maybe my invitation had gotten lost in the mail. Priya had looked confused. "Oh, I don't think. I mean, I did the guest list, and..." She'd gone pale. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Hayes," Michael specifically said. "He said you wouldn't want to come, that it wasn't your kind of thing." That night, I'd called Michael. It had gone to voicemail. I'd called 4 more times over the next week. Finally, he'd texted, "Dad, this is a business event. It's black tie, very formal. You'd be uncomfortable. Let's grab lunch next month after things settle down." I'd responded, "I can rent a tux. I'd like to be there." His reply had come an hour later. "Dad, please. Jennifer's family will be there. Major investors, board members, press. I need everything to be professional. I love you, but this isn't the place for you. Try to understand." I'd understood then, but I'd needed to see it for myself. So I'd rented a tux, driven to the convention center, and found my name with a red line through it and a note, "Do not admit under any circumstances." Now, driving back to my shop in Northeast Portland, I made a phone call. "Marcus," I said when he picked up. "It's Robert." "Robert, how's retirement treating you? Still playing mechanic? I need you to do something for me. Tonight." There was a pause. Marcus knew my tone. "What do you need?" "I need you to execute Section 7 of the Micro Edge Investment Agreement." Silence. Then, "Robert, that's nuclear. That's the clause that gives us majority board control if the founders engage in actions detrimental to investor relations or company reputation." I finished. "I'm invoking it." "On what grounds?" "On the grounds that Michael Hayes is misrepresenting the company's origin story, minimizing investor contributions, and creating a false narrative that could constitute fraud in the eyes of the SEC if it affects stock valuations based on manufactured rags to riches appeal." "Robert, that's a stretch, and you know it." "Then invoke it on personal grounds. The agreement includes a morality clause. Check Section 7, subsection C. Failure to maintain ethical standards in personal and professional conduct. I'm the primary investor, Marcus. The company exists because of me, and my son just banned me from a celebration of something I built while pretending I don't exist." Another long pause. "What do you want me to do?" "I want you to call David Brennan." David Brennan was the CEO of the convention center, a man who'd been in the industry for 30 years. He was also someone whose startup I'd saved from bankruptcy 15 years ago by buying his debt and forgiving it, asking only that he remember the favor. "I want David to enforce the cancellation clause in tonight's event contract," I said. "Chen Ventures is listed as a co-sponsor on that event. As of right now, we're withdrawing our sponsorship and demanding immediate contract cancellation per the terms in Section 12. That's going to cost MicroEdge the full deposit, the vendor fees, everything, Marcus said. We're talking $500,000. I know, and it's going to happen in the middle of the party. I know, Robert. I've known you for 25 years. This isn't like you. Maybe it's exactly like me, I said. Maybe I've just been too patient for too long. I hung up and drove home, past the auto shop to my actual house, a modest ranch in a quiet neighborhood where I'd raised Michael. Inside, I changed out of my rented tux and put on jeans and a flannel shirt. Then I sat in my late wife's chair, the one she'd loved, and I waited. My phone rang at 8:47 p.m. Mr. Hayes? It was Priya, Michael's assistant, and she was crying. I don't know what happened. They shut down the party. The center manager came in and said there was a contract violation and everyone had to leave immediately. Michael's freaking out. The press was there. The live stream was running. They were about to ring the bell, and then the power just cut. The band stopped. The lights came on. Security started ushering people out. Is everyone safe? I asked. Yes, but... Mr. Hayes, it's a disaster. The caterers are demanding payment. The guests are confused. Jennifer's father is furious. Michael's reputation, she sobbed. I don't understand what happened. I'm sure it'll work out, I said gently. These things usually do. After I hung up, I felt no satisfaction. Just a deep, hollow ache that I'd had to do this at all. Michael called at 9:23 p.m. I answered. What did you do? His voice was shaking with rage. What the hell did you do? I don't know what you're talking about, son. Don't lie to me. Chen Ventures pulled sponsorship. Brennan said it came from direct investor instruction. That's you, isn't it? You know these people somehow. You sabotaged my event. Your event, I said quietly. That I wasn't invited to. So this is revenge? This is you teaching me a lesson? Do you have any idea what you've done? The press was there, Dad. It's going to be all over the tech news tomorrow. MicroEdge IPO celebration ends in disaster. Our stock is going to tank. Maybe, I said. Or maybe people will understand that actions have consequences. Actions? What actions? Not inviting you to a formal business event? You're a mechanic, Dad. You work on cars. Jennifer's father is a federal judge. Our investors manage billions. What was I supposed to do? Have you show up in your work boots and Carhartt jacket? You were supposed to be my son, I said. You were supposed to remember who you are and where you came from. I know where I came from. I came from nothing. From a dead mother and a father who gave up on ambition to fix strangers' cars instead of being something more. I built MicroEdge myself. Every late night, every pitch meeting, every line of code. That was me, not you. You're right, I said. It was you, your vision, your work, your dedication. I never doubted that for a second. Then why did you do this? Because I needed you to understand something, Michael. And since you won't take my calls anymore, since you put my name on a do not admit list, since you reduced me to one sentence in a Forbes article, I had to communicate in a language you'd understand. Which is what? Sabotage? Honesty, I said. But we'll talk about that later. Right now, you have bigger problems to handle. Good night, son. I hung up while he was still yelling. The next morning, the tech news sites ran the story exactly as Michael had predicted. MicroEdge IPO celebration ends in chaos. Contract dispute shuts down event. The article included photos of confused guests being ushered out, of Michael standing in the empty convention center looking shell-shocked. But by afternoon, the narrative had shifted. Someone had leaked details about Chen Ventures' involvement, about the investor dispute. By evening, the Wall Street Journal had picked up a new angle. Who really built MicroEdge? Questions emerge about funding sources and founder's origin story. Michael didn't call me. Jennifer did. Mr. Hayes, she said, her voice cold and professional. I'm calling on behalf of Michael. He's retained legal counsel. If you continue to interfere with his business, we'll pursue action for tortious interference and defamation. I haven't defamed anyone, Jennifer. I've simply exercised my rights as an investor. Silence. Then, what are you talking about? Check the MicroEdge funding documents. Page 47, Section 3.2. Look at Chen Ventures' structure. Follow the LLCs backward. You're a lawyer. You'll figure it out. I hung up. She called back 3 minutes later. That's not possible. Which part? Your Chen Ventures is. You funded MicroEdge? $12 million over 6 years, I said. Every major round. Every expansion. I'm the majority investor, Jennifer. I've been on every board call. Sitting in the back of the room, watching my son build something incredible while he treated me like I was too simple to understand his work. Why didn't you tell him? Because I wanted him to earn it, to know what it felt like to build something yourself, without a safety net, without knowing your father was protecting you every step of the way. I wanted him to be proud of himself for the right reasons. And now? Now he needs to decide what kind of man he is. The kind who's ashamed of his father, or the kind who understands that success means nothing if you compromise your character to achieve it. She hung up without another word. For 3 days, I heard nothing. The auto shop stayed busy. I changed oil, rotated tires, replaced brake pads. My regular customers didn't know anything had happened. To them, I was just Robert, the mechanic who always took time to explain what was wrong with their cars and never overcharged. On the 4th day, Michael showed up at the shop at 6 a.m., before I'd even opened. He looked terrible. Unshaven, his eyes red-rimmed, wearing a hoodie and jeans instead of his usual tech executive uniform. I need to know why, he said. Not why you didn't tell me. I get that part. I mean, I'm angry about it, but I understand the logic. I need to know why you destroyed my party. Why you humiliated me in front of everyone. I put down the wrench I'd been holding. Come inside. We sat in my office, a cramped room with a metal desk and filing cabinets. I pulled out a folder I'd been keeping for 6 years. This is every check I've written, every investment I've made, every board meeting note I've taken, everything I've done to help MicroEdge succeed. I slid it across the desk. I never wanted credit. I never wanted you to feel like you owed me. I just wanted you to succeed. Michael opened the folder, his hands shaking. He read for 10 minutes without speaking. 12 million, he finally whispered. 12 million, I confirmed. And I'd give 12 million more if you needed it. But money isn't the issue here, Michael. Then what is? You put my name on a list. Do not admit, under any circumstances. Your own father. And when I called to ask about it, you told me I'd be uncomfortable, that it wasn't my kind of thing, that I needed to understand this was business. I was. Jennifer's family. He stopped, swallowed hard. They were judging everything. Her father kept asking about my background, about whether I had the right kind of family connections. Jennifer kept saying we needed to present a certain image, and I didn't fit that image. No, he admitted, you didn't. In your work clothes and your old truck, you looked exactly like what they'd expect from someone who pulled himself up from nothing. But if you'd shown up at the party, if you'd talked to people, they'd have realized. He stopped. That I'm not actually a simple mechanic? I finished. That I know more about venture capital and tech startups than most of the investors in that room? That I could have discussed cloud architecture and market positioning and exit strategies? Yes, Michael said quietly. And then the whole story would have fallen apart. The Forbes narrative, the underdog angle, all of it. And that narrative was more important than having your father there. He put his head in his hands. I don't know how I became this person. You became this person because I let you think success meant impressing people like Jennifer's father instead of being proud of who you really are. That's on me. No, Michael said, looking up. That's on me. You raised me better than this. Mom would be ashamed. The mention of his mother hit like a physical blow. I took a breath, steadied myself. Your mother would be proud of what you built, I said, but disappointed in how you handled it. Yes. We sat in silence for a long moment. The stock has tanked, Michael finally said. Down 20% since the party disaster. The board wants my resignation. Jennifer's father called me yesterday to say I'm an embarrassment and that I should break up with Jennifer before I damage her career prospects. And are you going to? No, he said. I love her. At least, I think I do. But I don't know if she loves the real me or the version I've been pretending to be. Then you need to find out, I said. Before you go any further, what about the company? The board? I pulled out my phone and called Marcus. Execute the counterproposal. Standard terms. What counterproposal? Michael asked after I hung up. I'm withdrawing the Section 7 action. Chen Ventures is reaffirming our investment and our confidence in your leadership. By close of business today, the narrative shifts to major investor reaffirms commitment to MicroEdge after internal review. Your stock will stabilize. Why would you do that? Because I wasn't trying to destroy your company, son. I was trying to save you. Michael's eyes filled with tears. I don't deserve that. No, I agreed. You don't. But neither did I. When your mother died and I had a 7-year-old boy to raise and no idea what I was doing. We don't always get what we deserve. Sometimes we get what we need instead. He stood up, walked to the window, looked out at the empty parking lot. I need to fix this. All of it. The Forbes article, the press coverage, the way I've treated you. Start by figuring out who you want to be, I said. Not who Jennifer's father wants you to be. Not who the Forbes reporter wanted you to be. Who Michael Hayes wants to be. I don't know anymore. Then take some time to figure it out. The company can run without you for a few weeks. You have good people, and you'll help? If I need advice? I've been helping for 6 years, I pointed out. I'm not going to stop now. He nodded, wiped his eyes, and left without another word. For 2 weeks, I didn't hear from him. The stock stabilized. The press moved on to other stories. Priya called to thank me for whatever I'd done to fix things, though she clearly didn't understand what had happened. On a Saturday morning, Michael showed up at my house. He was alone. Jennifer and I broke up, he said, standing on my porch. Her father was right about one thing. I was an embarrassment. Not because of where I came from, but because I was ashamed of it. She deserved better than someone who'd lie about his own father. I'm sorry, I said. Don't be. She told me yesterday that she couldn't respect someone who didn't respect himself. She was right. He paused. I've also stepped back from day-to-day operations. Promoted my CTO to CEO. He's better at it anyway. And what will you do? I don't know yet. But I was thinking, the shop's been busy, right? You could use another mechanic? I studied my son's face, looking for signs of sarcasm or desperation. I found only genuine uncertainty. You know how to change oil, I said slowly. And I taught you brakes when you were 16. I could learn the rest, he said. I mean, if you'd be willing to teach me. What about MicroEdge? Your board position? I'll stay on the board. But Marcus can handle the investor relations. I've spent 6 years building a company. Maybe I should spend the next 6 months figuring out who I am when I'm not CEO. I opened the door wider. Come in. I'll make coffee. Over the next 3 months, Michael worked at the shop. He started with oil changes and tire rotations, gradually working his way up to more complex repairs. He was terrible at first, fumbling with tools, forgetting sequences, getting frustrated, but he kept at it. The regular customers loved him. They didn't know he was the founder of a newly public tech company. They just knew he was Robert's son, the guy who'd finally decided to learn the family business. One afternoon, while we were working on a transmission rebuild, Michael said, I've been thinking about the Forbes article. Yeah? I want to do a follow-up, a real one, about what actually happened. About you, about Chen Ventures, about how I almost destroyed everything by being ashamed of where I came from. You don't have to do that. Yes, he said, I do. Not for you, for me. Because I need to own it. All of it. The article ran 6 weeks later. The real MicroEdge story. How a father's silent investment taught a son about success and humility. Michael had written it himself, with full disclosure about Chen Ventures, about my role, about the party disaster, and why it happened. The tech community's response was mixed. Some called it a publicity stunt. Others praised his honesty. The stock dipped slightly, then recovered, as investors realized the company's fundamentals remained strong. But the comments that mattered most came from other founders who'd hidden their own family support. From kids who'd been ashamed of their parents' working-class jobs. from parents who recognized the difficult balance between helping and hovering. I thought I was the only one who felt like this. One comment read, "Thank you for being brave enough to admit it." Michael framed that comment and hung it in the shop office, right next to a photo of his mother. On a Sunday morning, 8 months after the party disaster, we were having coffee in my kitchen when Michael's phone buzzed. "It's Priya," he said, reading the message. "The board wants to do a company anniversary event next year, 5 years since founding. She's asking if I have any input on the guest list." He looked at me. "What do you think, Dad? Should I suggest they include a certain mechanic/secret investor?" "Only if he gets to wear his work boots," I said. "Deal," Michael said. "But this time, you're giving the keynote speech. Nobody wants to hear me talk about carburetors. They want to hear you talk about everything else." He paused. "And so do I. I've got 6 years of business advice I should have been getting from you. We've got a lot of catching up to do." I raised my coffee mug. "To catching up." He clinked his mug against mine. "To family. The kind you don't put on do not admit lists. The kind you don't put in Forbes articles as one-sentence footnotes," I added. "The kind," Michael said softly, "that you build a company for in the first place, even if it takes you a while to remember that." We sat there in the morning light, 2 mechanics sharing coffee, a father and son who'd taken the long way around to understanding what mattered. The company would be fine. The stock would fluctuate. The press would write what they'd write. But this, right here, was success. Not the IPO, not the valuation, not the Forbes recognition. This, coffee with my son, knowing that when he looked at me, he saw not a liability or an embarrassment, but the man who'd always believed in him, even when he'd forgotten to believe in himself. That was worth $12 million. That was worth everything.